moniker of Sentier de Tire-Poil, Hair-Pluck Lane. These days it was known by the prosaic anodyne name of the Coastal Path. After some 50 metres, Manon came to a barrier with a hazard warning sign, Danger, No Entry. Earlier in the week a fierce storm had lashed the coast, and the waves had caused landslides that had cut off certain sections of the path. Manon hesitated for a moment, then scrambled over the barrier. 1992. Southernmost point, Cap d'Antibes, October the 1st. Vinca Rockwell blithely hopped and skipped as she passed the beach of La Joliette. It was 10 p.m. To get here from the lycée, she had had to sweet-talk a friend from her class who owned a moped to drive her as far as the Chemin de la Garoupe. As she set off down Smuggler's Way, she could feel butterflies fluttering in the pit of her stomach. She was going to meet Alexis. She was going to meet the love of her life. A fierce gale was blowing, but the night was so beautiful, the sky so cloudless, she could see almost as well as in daylight. Vinca had always loved this place because it was so wild, so unlike the clichéd image of summer on the French Riviera. When the sun shone, you were dazzled by the tawny white glare of the limestone crags, the myriad shades of blue that bathed the narrow inlets. Once, while gazing out towards the Layton Islands, she had seen a pod of dolphins. On nights like tonight, when the wind howled, it was a very different place. The sheer rock face loomed dangerously. The olives and the pine trees seemed to writhe in pain as though trying to uproot themselves. Vinca did not care. She was going to meet Alexis. She was going to meet the love of her life. 2017. Fuck's sake! The heel of one of Manon's pumps had snapped off. Jesus! She'd now have to stop off at her apartment before she went to the reunion, and the friend who'd lent her these shoes would let rip at her tomorrow. She slipped them off, shoved them into her bag, and carried on barefoot. She was still following the narrow paved path that overlooked the cliffs. The air was pure and invigorating. The mistral had swept the night sky of clouds and scattered it with constellations. The view was breathtaking, sweeping from the old city walls of Antibes across the Bay of Nice, framed by the mountains inland. Here in the shelter of the pine forests were some of the most lavish properties on the Côte d'Azur. The air quivered with the crash of waves sending up sea spray. She could feel the brute force of the sea. The area had seen many tragic accidents in the past. The swell from roiling waves had swept away fishermen, tourists, even couples who had come to make love by the shores. The resulting outcry had forced the authorities to secure the way, building concrete steps, clearing the path and erecting barriers to thwart the hiker's impulse to get too close to the edge. But it took only a few hours of high winds to turn it into dangerous terrain once more. Manon had just reached a spot where a fallen Aleppo pine had buckled the barrier and blocked the path. Impossible to go any further. She considered turning back. There was not a living soul around. The gale-force mistral had kept people away. Get the hell out, girl. She stood motionless and listened to the wind blowing. It was like a plaintive howl, at once close and distant. A muted threat. Although she was barefoot, she leapt up onto a boulder, skirted the obstruction, and walked on, with only her phone to light the way. A dark figure was silhouetted some way down the cliff face. She peered into the gloom. No, she was too far away to make out what it was. With great care she tried to climb down. She heard a tearing sound. The hem of her lace dress had ripped, but she ignored it. Now she could see the figure that had caught her eye. It was a body. The corpse of a woman, sprawled on the rocks. As she moved closer, she felt terror grip her. This was no accident. The woman's face had been beaten to a bloody pulp. God Almighty. Manon felt her legs give way up.